Welcome to the PageStarter Podcast. I have a wonderful guest today, Mila Johansen. Mila is a public speaker. She's a writer, a publisher, and a public speaking coach, actually. She's also the best-selling author of 9 books, including From Cowgirl to Congress, Journey of a Suffragist on the Front Lines. Very interesting. It's a first-person account of Jessie Haver Butler. Mila's grandmother put together the Pulitzer School of Journalism, which is incredible, mind-blowing, and was the first woman lobbyist in DC and taught public speaking to Eleanor Roosevelt. So Mila comes from a long line of women in publishing and speaking. She knows what she's talking about. In the early 90s, Jessie shared the podium all over Hollywood with Gloria Steinem and Mario Thomas and took Mila along with. What a great experience. Mila also has several more books in progress and loves to write and produce short screenplays, a woman of many talents, and she has developed the short book concept, giving people all over the world permission to write their short book first, which is a concept I had never heard of. So welcome, Mila. So happy to have you here.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so happy. So let's start with the short book concept and just, mention that we can go into as much stuff as you want, but tell us more about the short book and why authors should start there.
Yeah, because, a lot of people want to write a book and then they think it's got to be this long, arduous project. And someone told me, why don't you just write a short book? And I had written several books anyway. But I thought, oh, yeah, why not? Because, with the attention span of people on the planet, that they can chew up a little short book. So the shortest book you can put on Amazon and still have a spine, which is nice to have a spine, is 36 pages. And then a lot of people are opting to do the 98 pages because with 98 pages, you have room on the spine for your title and the name of the author. And then a lot of people are really choosing to do the comfortable 120 to 135 page book. And then when we're doing long books now, they're more like 200, 300 pages. We're not doing missionary anymore. We're not doing the 500 page book unless you're a sci-fi writer. And even then, I'm helping a lot of, I have a lot of clients and I'm helping a lot of them put their books together. When the book gets too long, I say, well, let's divide it into 2 books, because here's the secret, Lisa, is that the more books you have on Amazon, the more it builds your algorithms and the more your other books sell. Like, it kind of feeds each other. And so right now, series are big. They're selling like crazy. So if you have a series and you do like a sale on one book, usually you'll make a lot of sales on the other book. So that's where the short book concept came from. And everybody gets so excited. They go, well, I could write a 36 page book. And that's true. Anybody could write a 36 page book in a day or 2. Get it edited, please. We don't want more bad books. And then get it published in a week or 2. And, publishing on Amazon is completely free now. And you could probably figure it out with a few YouTube tutorials, or you come to me and I walk you through the whole process and hold your hand.
Yeah, that's great. And really, it's just about, I would almost look at the short book as just getting your experience in to get you over that experience hump of like, oh, I can't do this, or, oh, I'm too scared, or, oh, I don't know what to do. And so once you cut your teeth on that, then you're like, oh, okay, I do know what to do. And then you can focus on the next one. So it's almost like, just put it out there, get it out there, get over yourself, really. Stop holding yourself back and just put something out there. So in a way, you've just removed all excuses.
I like that. I'm going to say that to people, that I'll say just what you said. That was perfect. Because also what I'm teaching people to do is, if I was at home, you would see all my plays and musicals. I've written 22 plays and musicals for a theater company I worked in for 38 years. And they go all over the world. And I realized a long time ago that, and this was 40 years ago, that schools and churches don't have time to rehearse the hour and 45-minute play. So I cut them to medium and short. And that's where this whole modular concept came from. I've developed it myself for years and years. And so I say, write that short book, and then don't even get rid of that book once you're going to expand it to be a longer book. Just put up the longer book and then the longer book, and now you have 3 books, which build your algorithms. And a lot of people are using their short book for their outline for their longer book. But here's the cool thing. It's kind of what you said. If they don't get to the longer book, at least they've published their short book. And a lot of business people are doing it to show, prove their authority, their expertise, and to hand out. I wrote this book a long time ago, and I put I gave it away as a PDF, 5,000 of them while I was speaking on podcasts and speaking shows and summits. And then I finally put it into a book. This is 70 pages. That's a pretty short book, 70 pages. You see, I can't put the title on the spine.
Right.
But this book, now I sell, and I whenever I work with a client, I actually mail it to them. So they have it physically in their hands. It's a good book. I could
expand a nice gift.
Longer. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah. And just for those listening to the podcast, it was 101 ways to promote your book, which is a great, like a nice, I can easily see how that would be a PDF and you can convert that. So there may be things that people listening are like, oh, I already have something like that I could do. It's like, yes, turn that into a book. That could totally work.
Well, that's, I'm giving a workshop soon on how to turn material you already have, which I'm sure you have a lot from your podcast, into books. Like you could take the transcripts from your podcast, turn it into a book, even a compilation, anthology book. And then I have one woman, she has 500 beautiful blogs. And I said, whoa, you have 5 books there, girl. But we started making them into books. And turns out she has 20, so she's not quite getting to it yet. But she has all this material already beautifully written. And then I give her the concept. I do this with a lot of people. Take the same cover, since it's a series, and just put it in different colors. Like I did that with this book, with this woman. She's writing a book on, really, her children came out of college with $10,000 each to spend on their life. And if you do what she says, she's amazing. So she's going to do her whole series. The next one will be blue, orange, yellow. And I told her to do primary colors because it's school, and school's primary colors. But with the other girl with the blogs, hers about women stuff. So I told her to do the sub colors like turquoise, magenta, and tangerine. So there's all these concepts that go with it.
Yeah, having book covers that look similar and are branded is really important when you're doing a series. And this goes for any series. I mean, you could even do an illustrated children's book, and you want your books that are in a series to look and feel like they're the same, like they belong to the same family. They don't have to be identical, but they should look related in some way. So, and you can see this, and this is, I can tell you're taking this like straight from the traditional publishers. If you look at any type of series, you can see it's like, okay, there's a formula, and you just kind of copy and paste and replace. And that's just what you do. So great tips. So tell us more about, how you got started and how you got, with your 9 books, from Cowgirl to Congress. What really started that, and what have you been working on since?
Well, make sure I talk about Cowgirl to Congress, but I have to tell you a funny story first. When I was little, and this will really date me, I went to see Mary Poppins, the first one. And I came home and I went in my bedroom, shut the door, and drew some chalk drawings. And I can't even draw stick people, so they weren't very good. And I shut my eyes and I tried to jump into them. I just knew I'd be transported to the world of merry-go-rounds and penguins. And I wasn't, and I tried 8 times, but I believed it. And guess what? I still believe it, because I meditate and things do happen. And so I do believe it. But anyway, so I thought, well, I was 8, right? So I go, I would write a book. Maybe I can travel through that way. So I started writing my first novel, and I wrote a page and a half, and I quit, because I was 8. But when I was 18, my mother tricked me. And this is what I'm doing with people with the short book. I'm tricking you just like my mother did. At 18, she said, Mila, I know you've wanted to be a writer all your life. Why don't you just write 1 sentence a day? And I went, I could write 1 sentence a day. And you can't. It's like potato chips. So I ended up writing a page and a half or 2 a day. And by the end of the month, I was a writer. And so that's what I do with people. I say, Toni Morrison, the famous novelist, she said she wrote her first book in 15 minutes a day, because that's all the time she had between raising children and work. And so I'm telling people right now on the street, it's 20 minutes a day. That's all we ask. And then I'm saying even 5 minutes a day will add up to a book. And a lot of people have come back to me and said, you told me 5 minutes, but I can't just do 5 minutes. I have to write more. So it's kind of what my mom did to me. And that's how I became a writer.
That's a great story. I love that. And I think that, we're so resistant to doing the work. and you come up with all these things. Oh, I don't have the time to write a novel. I don't have the time. I don't have the skill. Blah, blah, blah. Or what a lot of my author clients, they fall into this trap of, I have to do more research. I have to research that before I can do it. I have to. No, you just need to write. You just need to write.
I have a remedy for that.
Okay.
I've been taking this classic, Comic-Con. Comic-Con's
Yes.
a big thing here.
Yes.
And my daughter made me go about 20 years ago, and we went for 14 years before COVID. And there's this guy I found out about 4 years into it, and he would do this great workshop. And he said, and this is what we should do now. Everybody listen and follow these orders, okay? Because I do. Because I used to hide behind editing and research. I mean, I'm sure you did too. You do too. And so he said that he writes like Isaac Asimov. He didn't say Isaac Asimov, but I know that's where he copied it from. He writes from 8 to 12 every day. That's what Isaac did. And then he says during that 4 hours, he's only allowed to write new material, not research, not edit. If he wants to research and edit, he can do it later in the day. So I have taken him seriously. And even if I'm only writing for 20 minutes, it has to be new writing. And so I've told all my students, all my clients this, and people are starting to follow that and getting a lot done. Because like I said, I'll hide behind research. I am a research hound.
Yeah, because that's safe. Because, research is safe. I'm learning, and I'm spending my time learning more and getting this, and I'll get started once I'm an expert. But the thing is that you have to write to become the expert, because you will never get better at writing if you don't start writing. So
right.
Yeah, so that's really great. Okay, so tell us about from Cowgirl to Congress.
Sure. I just want to tell you one more thing about that. Is Barbara Kingsolver, I always quote her too, says, give yourself permission to write a bad book and then work on it until it's a good book. And I really like that, because what she means is blather it down. Don't worry about it. And no more of this, I'm waiting till I'm ready stuff. No, you're ready. Go. And that's, you and I are both, I think, helping people break through that. I can tell.
Yeah. And what's the I just write the crappy first draft. Like everyone's first draft is crap, and so just write it, and just get it down, and don't worry about it. And I have my Grammarly doc is started. It just says fast track novel, and it's truly just write. Don't think beyond the writing. Just get down, write it, and be done with it. Don't overanalyze it, because I could outline myself until to the end of time. I have to actually just start writing.
Well, and we do have the thing of outliners and pantsers, and I've been a pantser all my life until 2 years ago when I did NaNoWriMo, where you write a book in a month. Mm-hmm. In November, I outlined it just by a huge bullet list. That's how I outline. And you know what? I wrote the end first because I knew it, because I outlined it, and the book came together in a month. It really did. So now I'm a little bit more of an outliner, but there's a term. Do you know that term? It's between pantser and outliner, and I can't remember. It's out pantser. No, I can't remember.
A panty liner? No, that's something else.
Right. But there is a term. Anyway, okay, well, my grandmother's book, this is From Cowgirl to Congress. It's every woman's story of winning the right to vote. Mm-hmm. She was the first lobbyist at the Capitol. But first of all, she came from, this is her good story, a tragic childhood. Her mother died when she was 10. Her little sister had drowned in the ditch the week before. Okay. And her father was, they consider him the pillar of their community, but he wasn't. They lived on a farm, and no one was there to monitor him. And I don't even tell the whole story here, because I wanted our family to read it, and they still think of him as the pillar of the family, from the 1800s. And so she had a teacher who saw how brilliant she was and got her to Smith College on the East Coast. And there must have been a star above her head, because from then on, all these things happened to her. Her first job was working for, you'll love this, Macmillan and Company Publishing. Wow. Her second job was working to help one professor put together the Pulitzer School of Journalism. And her third job was setting the minimum wage for women from, if you can imagine, $4 a week to $8 a week, and to get the children out of the factories. And I have, in this book, I have 98 rare pictures, and one of them is of the bill they put together to raise the minimum wage. And then they sent me down to DC to become the first woman lobbyist and set the minimum wage for the entire country.
Wow.
Yeah. So then she met Alice Paul immediately, and Alice Paul had a house across the street from the White House, and would invite Jessie to lunch every day. She gave all the women who worked for her cafeteria style. Now here's Lisa. This is so interesting. You'll love this. Alice Paul, I would have thought was the hippie of the age. She was from a very wealthy Quaker family. And she had gone to London to get her PhD, back then a woman, a PhD in economics at the London School of Economics, where she met Emmeline Pankhurst and learned the militant form of suffrage. So she came back and started her thing. And my grandmother, she kept asking my grandmother to march for them and do all the, the martyr stuff. And my grandmother said, I'm a parliamentarian. I have to, I'll be your lobbyist. And she didn't want to join them, even though she was friends with all of them. So she joined Carrie Chapman Catt, who was the parliamentarian, not as well known because she didn't do all those martyr things, And so she went all around the country as the second speaker with Carrie Chapman Catt to ratify the vote. And they came back and they had 36 or 37 votes and they needed 38. So they all went down to Nashville, where they probably weren't going to vote for them. And that's the story. Have you heard the story? There's the young man who had the last vote, and he voted for ratification. And all the men came up and thumped him on the back and said, why did you do that? Harry, you were going to vote against it. And he said, well, I got a letter from my mother. And the letters in the book, I didn't.
I love that.
I'd read it. Yeah. So all the newspaper men got so excited they rented cars because they didn't have cars back then, and they rented cars and they went up to her farm and she's coming out of her barn with 2 pails of milk and she invites them in and gives them some cornbread and milk, and they say, well, why did you write that letter to your son? It was very witty. She goes, well, these here in Nashville Hills, it's long winters and we're always reading Shakespeare, and Shakespeare's always funning with words. So I thought I could fun with some words. And so 17 million women got the right to vote because of this one hill folk woman in the mountains.
Wow. That's incredible. What an incredible story. And there's always this feeling, and I think, it's modern, maybe a modern feeling, but I'm just one person. What can I do? And this is a story of how one person truly impacted 17 million people. It wasn't just one person. It was your grandmother and everyone who she was working with, talking to all these women. And it just happened to be that one final woman in the Tennessee Hills who tipped, the scales. But wow, what an incredible story.
Isn't it? And we got it. Most people don't realize this too. This is really interesting. 16 states gave women the right to vote before 1920, and all the northern states gave Black women the right to vote. And most people don't know that. And then England didn't get the right to vote till 1928. Now, I hope you're sitting down, which I see maybe you are. In Switzerland, they didn't get the right to vote until 1971.
I know.
Is that shocking? When I heard that on NPR one day, I had to pull my car over. I was so stunned. I was like,
yeah, I had no idea. And then when you start looking at the dates that, countries granted women the right to have their own bank account, it was one thing to have, the right to vote, but a lot of women still didn't have fiscal or financial independence at all. They still had to have, rely on their husbands or their father's bank accounts to, and so progress has not been that fast.
I know. And, I say to people, I'm not always popular in every circle, but I speak to women's groups all the time. And that's the best way to sell books, folks, is to speak live to groups because they all feel obligated to buy your book. I just spoke to a women's group, 40 people, and it was a luncheon. They gave me lunch and they all bought the book. So that was a really pretty day because I buy it, at cost on Amazon and then bring it there and sell it for like $10 more. But anyway, what I was going to say was, about the vote. Oh, sorry, I lost my thought.
Oh, it's okay. You said you were not always popular with groups.
Well, I know, that's it. I'm not always popular, but people are starting to agree with me that women have been the most marginalized population in all of history, over and over and over, all through time. And we've been slaves. We didn't have our bank accounts, like you said. And I really want people to know that we're the ones who have been marginalized more than any other culture or population. And I want to spread that around because it's true.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, I almost think, and this is, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but I think ancient civilizations actually exalted women more than modern societies do. And modern societies have erased history where women held power. We saw there was a recent finding here in Sweden where one of the largest Viking burial mounds, with buried with 4 horses and all of the war regalia around this body, turned out to be female, and it had been assumed to be male this entire time because it was in the most prominent place, and it was in the most, clearly this was the commander of the Viking tribe, and this was a person of great importance. And still scholars to this day say, oh, maybe it was the leader's daughter, or maybe it was, like, they just can't imagine that a woman was in charge of a war, a war battalion or a leader of some type. And so for this Viking woman to be of such high status, this was, hundreds of years ago. And so I think that there is some internalized misogyny in archaeology as well. And people just disagree that the bones are female. And you're like, these are female hips. Like, what do you mean? Like, we can tell. So I do think that, women have been erased from their, or just not promoted as much. For example, the stories that you're saying about the suffragist movement, like, that's not really talked about in history books. And it should be, because it is a part of our history and it's a really important part. And I think that more women need to discover all the ways that women have been leading and changing and shaping culture throughout history that will also continue to shape and, impact today's society as well.
Well, and Jessie believed men needed to be involved because they were the ones who voted for the vote. And so, because see, Alice Paul and Carrie Chapman Catt had a huge falling out because Alice Paul didn't want to include men, but Carrie Chapman Catt knew they had to get the vote. So, and Jessie said, well, without both of those women, the radical and the parliamentarian, we would not have won the right to vote in 1920. So she was very open to all of that, and she knew that was true. And so we don't want to marginalize anybody, but we have to realize the plight of women and talk about it more. And, and I think my daughter watched that show Vikings. I couldn't watch it. It was too violent, but she met them at Comic-Con. She got to meet the whole cast, and they really did let women fight and do all that stuff. So I think they were a little more open than some other societies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Great. Awesome. So, so this isn't the only book that you've published. Can you tell us a little bit about, you have 9 titles that are printed and fully out there. What else have you been working on?
Well, I've done anthologies. I like to call them that rather than compilation books because I just like the term better. And I've done them for centuries, for years with my classes I've taught because I've been teaching offline. And the one we're doing right now, we're doing the 2nd edition of the Cinderella Monologues. And do you see this gray bar along here? That's one of the great attributes of Amazon is that they let us get samples, and that's a sample. And you can buy your samples for cost. Like this book for me is $4.50. My short book here is $2.50. So I can buy as many as I want, and I can even drop ship this book to my new clients. Like I can just probably maybe $5 with shipping and tax, ship it right to them. And so every time I meet someone, and because Amazon has so many amazing attributes. And what happened, I should probably backtrack for 1 minute, is, my grandmother's, people sent me all of her file cabinets when she passed away because I'm the archivist in the family. And one day I needed a project with my niece who was living with me and working for me. So we started going through the file cabinets, and we found 19 letters from Lady Astor to Jessie, the largest collection in the world. And Lady Astor, I didn't realize, was a woman from Virginia who married the richest man in the world, one of the 5, and became the first woman to sit in Parliament for 28 years. And so I found all these things, and that's where the book started. And then 2 months into it, I thought, well, I'll put the book together. It's her memoir, and I'll add things and edit it. And so I started working on the book, and 2 months into it, I went, oh my God, in a year and a half, the 100th anniversary is coming up, and I had no idea. And so I kicked the book into gear, hired someone to help me, and got it out for the 100th anniversary, 2020, August 18th. So I just
Wow.
wanted to tell you that. But this is great because, a great way to be published and easy to do is to be in anthologies. And not everyone's really good at anthologies, I will say that. But we have this, we do a beautiful headshot and a bio, and we give lots of space for everything. And
That's
that's part
beautiful.
of putting a book. Yeah, it's a beautiful book. It's
Yeah.
part of putting a book together. I've been in a few other people's anthologies. I'm in as many anthologies as I can be because it's real estate, I call it, and it's exposure. And so I'm in 9 books. I think 4 of them are other people's anthologies. I have 14 books online. I was traditionally published with 2 of my first books, 101 Theater Games, which has been used as a textbook in colleges for people teaching theater, and then also all around the world, and then also 50 Scenes to Go. And now here's some funny story. You've arrived when people use your book for money laundering. I've seen my book, $22 book on sale on Amazon for $1,000. Right now, there's one up there for 80. And I asked my niece, I go, what do you think they're doing? Why is my book $1,000? She goes, Mila, they're using it for money laundering.
Oh, I
Funny?
had no idea. I just thought they were hoping on someone clicking and buying through and not realizing that it was $1,000 book.
Well, maybe that could be true.
Yeah, like they'll take that too. Like, doesn't matter. That makes a lot more sense. Oh my gosh. Some of the things, Amazon is great in so many ways, but it is the wild, wild west out there in terms of like copyright infringements. And again, people using your book for nefarious purposes or anything. I mean, it can be really tough. What are some Amazon tricks or approaches that you think not enough authors know about, that would benefit them, that would benefit or boost,
Well, I really think if you use the real estate, because, if you go to Amazon, look up any book, anybody do this, look at my book, whoops, From Cowgirl to Congress, and you will see that they've given me a circle picture, and you have these on your books too, I'm sure, Lisa. Yep. And then they gave me a bio, they gave me a place for a description. And I learned a long time ago, in your description, put, there's about 3 sentences showing, and then you have to click more. No one's going to click more. Probably no one's even going to read that. So put your website in the first sentence or 2 so that people get it, and ask for a review right there. These are my tricks. And then also, most people don't know, and I bet you don't know this, is that if you go to my site, From Cowgirl to Congress, you can see little tiny videos that I put on, 5-minute videos. And I did one professional one I made in a class, and one of me just coming on like this and saying, hey, here's my new book, and here's the story of women winning the right to vote. And I tell the Nashville story. And so, and you can put up several. I think you can put up like 5 or 10. I have 2 if you go look at mine. And I always call this real estate. Even though most people aren't going to watch the videos, you should still have them there. And then the other great thing that Amazon gives us is an Amazon page, and that's where that little circle and bio come from. And you can do this whole Amazon page. So now when you look up Mila Johansen, you'll see all my books in a line going across and all my books going in a line down. And the great thing is, when I sell one of those books, it kind of sells the other books. And then there's Amazon advertising, which I have not mastered yet, but I do a thing called, I don't know if you've heard of this, Fussy Librarian, Fussy. And I do that every 3 months. You can have a sale of your book on Amazon, and it's about $30 to $50 depending which one you do. But the first time I did the free giveaway with my grandmother's book, and your books stall and this brings new life into them, I gave away 1,500 bucks. And people say, well, I don't want to give away my books. And I go, oh, yes, you do. These are people who are never going to hear of your book. They're never going to read your book. And now they're going to talk about your book. So I like doing all those things. I have several other sites I just haven't hooked into yet because I'm so stuck in Fussy Librarian because I've had tremendous success. So there's all these little hacks you can do. And I'm putting out a book soon about anthologies because I'm in a lot of people's anthologies and they don't know all the things I know. So I'm putting it all into a book, because one thing people don't do in anthologies, and this is really big, this is really important, is to put the people. You can have 9 contributors. We can have 10 people, but you're one, and 9 contributors. So you want to be ruthless. It's not about being fair. You want to take the person with the most books and put them first. And then if, like, we're doing a cookbook, I'm doing an anthology cookbook, and a man named Eddie Brill, he's a New York comedian, very famous. He used to do the Tonight Show. He used to open it every night. And he wrote the foreword for our book. So we put him first because he's famous. If you can get a famous person to write your foreword, or someone who has a lot of books, that works too. On this book, I had a mentor who's written 2 physical books and 25 ebooks. So he wrote the foreword. So that tied me to all his books. So the secret on the anthologies is to put the people who have the most books first, or maybe the forward if they're famous, then the most books, then the next most books, and then you go all the way down the line. And then the other people can add themselves later, but then their author pages and bio will show up. And so that's a real secret for anthologies that a lot of people don't know.
That's great. That's great. That's a great Amazon trick for that. Now, when it comes to editing anthologies, so I've done 2 anthologies, and I never wanted to do it again because the editing was so rough. It was so rough. I mean, and I've worked with, difficult people before, but it's just more about, it's not that people are difficult. It's that it's not top of mind and they're busy, and you know how busy you are in a regular day. It's even busier when you owe someone a piece of writing and you don't really care and you're not going to make any money on it anyway. And so you're like, hey, you have to follow up on this thing you said you're going to do. So do you have any tricks or advice to people who are maybe thinking of putting a collection together? What should they do to streamline that process, streamline the, acquiring submissions? I have some ideas, but I think part of that is good. And then also, just staying organized when putting it all together.
Well, you're right. It's like chasing cats, right?
Yes.
And so we had the same problem, but you have to put a deadline. And then what you can do is you never print a book without a sample, please. At least 2. With my grandmother, it took 8 samples because of all the pictures. And I think with the Cinderella monologues, maybe 4 because of the pictures. But regular books with no pictures, okay, once, twice, maybe. But so you could say to them, we're sending the book in, and that will scare them. But I also have a little contract. I kind of looked at other people's contracts. Mine's more like a letter of agreement. We are going to edit your book, and we're going to edit it the way we think it should be edited, so it will be a good book, And then what I did also was I put some of the stronger stories first. And here's another trick: I always put one of the 2 strongest stories at the end. I don't want the book to go. So I pepper everything throughout the book. But I think you have to start with that agreement. Now, do the agreement early, and you might have to make your own agreement, or you could find them online. There's many of them online. Give them to them early when they're excited. That used to happen in the theater company. The first 2 weeks, parents are so excited their kids are in the show, they would volunteer for all the positions. So you have to do it early when they're excited, and then they're not going to hold it against you that you did this agreement. Try not to do it late. That doesn't always work, but then that will really help, the agreement. And then in it say, but in the end, we will have total say over your piece, because and they're going to own their piece. Hopefully they're going to. One person doing an anthology told them they couldn't use it until a year later, but with me, as soon as the book's published, you can use it. So a lot of people are taking there's so many advantages to being in an anthology. One woman's been in 3 of mine, so she's going to, and 2 others with other people, kind of got her going. And now she's like a professional on Zoom doing this huge group. And she wasn't doing any of that before. And so because you can use your book to show authority, to speak from, even though you're just a portion of the group, it's still a book that you're published in. And so they, sorry, I have lost my thought again. I was talking about the, well, to get them to finish it. And that's the main thing. You can threaten that we're going to be printing the book. We're going to need it. And it's really hard for a lot of people is getting that headshot. We did learn that a really good phone can take a good enough headshot. And so getting the headshots and the bios, ask for that early. Then we send them the chapter for them to okay and edit. And then what I was saying was they could take their chapter and turning into a really short book, even an ebook. Mm-hmm. And then they can take, like, let's say my one student is in 5 anthologies. She's going to make that all into one book as her material. So, and some of the people I got really couldn't write. They had hardly any idea, but we worked on it and fixed it. I actually like doing that work, and I have a woman who works for me who likes it too. So I hope that's the right answer.
Yeah, yeah, and that was my experience too. Is that the quality of the writing varied so much that you have to edit. You end up having to do a lot of editing with some contributors and not as much with others, just so you have some consistency of quality throughout the book. I mean, obviously the voice is going to be different and the style is going to be different, but you need to have a similar style guide. I know that I ran into the problem of the UK writers did not want the U's removed from all of their words. They're like, color is COLOUR. You know, they was very, very strong about that. And I would never say diapers. I say nappies. And I'm like, I get it, but we're editing for a US audience, and US readers are very particular. And so I think you also have to come with a strong, like, this is how I want my book to be. And then, you know, these are your rules, and you're the one ultimately who has to make these style guide decisions. But I think if you put that into the call for submissions, people are more aware of it. But again, this is like, you know, learning curves. You're like, oh, if only I knew that. And so, yeah, I would say, like, in the call for submissions, even in the call for submissions, you could add the agreement that they have to sign and submit the agreement.
I wouldn't put the agreement in until they sign up, because that could thwart the signups. I'd get the signups. Now they're so excited, give them the agreement. I think there's a step there.
Yeah. Yeah. You're kind of like dating. Like, okay.
Well, and also, you know, like, I probably spent $5,000, $9,000 putting my grandmother's book together, because it was a big book and it was important. But let's say you're going to be in an anthology and you're going to pay somewhere between $500 and $2,000. Some people are charging $7,000. When another guy I know, $29,000. I'd say avoid those. But let's say even if you're going to pay $2,000 to be in the book, they're going to do all the work for you and the promotion, even though they're going to want you to promote to your friends, and they're going to give you some copies that you can have probably. And so it's a great opportunity to get published for a very low fee, believe me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's great. Great advice. Just go search, be a guest in anthology before you decide to take one on yourself. Because I do agree that being in one is a good kind of way to see how the process goes and see if you even want to do it.
And then get my book. My book will be out probably in a month or two, because, and I'm charging a lot for it because hardly anyone's doing anthologies, and it's going to be comprehensive. If you go step by step, you'll be a success. I mean, there's so much to it. I realized that a lot of people don't realize, especially like even just the margin inside the book, making it so we're not having to tear the book open and we can just read it, you know, little things.
Yeah. Book formatting is a huge thing that so many indie authors get wrong. It's like, we can do this. We can all figure this out. Yeah, that's great. So what advice do you give every author that you work with? Is there like a same thing that keeps coming up? You're like, okay, everyone needs to know this.
Just start. Because, you know, I have articles written about me for the last 40 years, and they always end up titling them, Just Start or Just Do It, always. And I have them in my file cabinet. I found one the other day to put into my PowerPoint to prove to the people who've been working with me for a while that this has really happened, because starting is it. If you don't start, you're not going to get anywhere. You know, Wayne Gretzky, the hockey player, says we miss 100% of the chances we don't take. So you just have to start. I swear, that's really it. If you could just start and write and do that 20 minutes a day, you'll have a book. Look at Toni Morrison. Yeah. She wrote all these books after that. And her first book, 15 minutes a day. So the main idea is to just start. And then later on, you can fix it. Later on, you can find a book designer, you know, and the covers, there's tons of places to get covers. There's a really good place I'll tell you about called Book Cover Zone.
Yes, I do know about that.
That's where I got this cover. And now we're going to put it in a slightly different shade for the second edition. And then also I have found some really good cover makers on Fiverr. $45, $65. You know, I paid $500 for the Cowgirl to Congress, but I won't ever do that again. For Cinderella Monologues, $150 on that site. So there's a lot of places where you can get a lot of this work done too. So whatever you do, don't let it stop you. Be in an anthology, and maybe use that as a stepping stone to your bigger book.
Yeah, I love it. And I think Book Cover Zone, you input your title and your name, and it totally formats it for you so you can really see what it looks like. And then when you purchase it, that's your cover. And that cover doesn't exist for anybody else.
I'm not sure about that. Maybe that's true, and maybe I missed that.
Is it not exclusive?
We had to buy it, and then I gave it to my person to redo.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Or you can do that. That also works.
Yeah, well, maybe I'm missing something. I better go back and look because that would be cool.
Yeah, and there are also book cover designers on Etsy. That's also another one that people don't even think of.
I haven't. I teach Etsy, and I'm on Etsy, and I make a lot of money on Etsy, but I didn't know that.
Yeah. Graphic design. I mean, I think you can get any type of like wedding invitation design, and then that's the design and that's yours, and it's like exclusive for you. So there are lots of, or maybe it's not even exclusive. I don't know, but you can figure this. I think book covers, similar with like logo designers, it's exclusive to you so that people don't have the same one out there running around, which is good. That's what you want now. But I love that. It's a great idea. Just do it. Just start. I mean, there's a reason why it's Nike's trademark, because it's sage advice. Just get going. Just get going. Well, good. Okay. And Mila, you work with so many authors. How do you really help them write and publish their books? What are some of the things that you do to help get them across the finish line?
Well, what I've really found is working lately is my once a week program, where I meet with them once a week, and they sign up for 3 months, 6 months, or a year. And those people are getting it done. I helped 3 people publish their books in July, and 2 in August, and 2 more this month. And part of it is I've been working with some of them a long time, 6 months or a year. So they were writing, they come in at different times. Some people just starting their book. Some people, I'm 2/3 through. I think I'm finished, but we had to edit the heck out of it. And so I'm really good developmental editor, where I take it and I go, there's a hole here. And then again, I'll still edit the whole thing. I can't stop if the quotes aren't there, and the commas and the spelling. But the people I'm working with once a week are getting it done. We are publishing so many books right now, and I'm helping people publish their anthologies too. I'm doing a cookbook right now. We did Dr. L's book with 34 authors of teachers and programs and stuff, and so. But mainly, I think this once a week working with people is really getting the job done, because then it's qualifying them, it's giving them things to do and things to accomplish, and they're really enjoying that. And I help them with covers. I help them wherever they are, beginning all the way through covers, all the way through publishing, all the way through advertising, and it's fun. For me, it's like a puzzle.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And so if someone is listening and they were like, okay, I have this idea for a book, what type of authors do you normally work with? Is it normally business people who are looking to, do a nonfiction, or are you also open to novelists?
Well, you would think that. And, everyone says, pick your target audience, but really, I have everybody. I just helped a guy with a science fiction book. I helped a guy just finish his novel about self-discovery. And I work on business books and anthologies, and it doesn't really matter, because, to be honest, it's the same process.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't read explicit sex or violence or horror, and I tell them, I don't say that up front, but if it has some of that in it, I'll say I can't work with them. And so mainly I've been helping every genre. Actually, a couple children's books that I have here. I helped put out to get too.
Great. That's great. Yeah, no, that's great. Awesome. Very good. So if I will include the link to Mila's website so you can go check her out and see, but I totally agree that meeting with someone once a week, twice a week, whatever it is, on a regular basis is the number one way to get things done, because sometimes you just need that meeting on the calendar to be like, yep, I'm showing up for this. I got to get my work done. I have 1 week to show progress, and that is enough to get your book finished. Whereas otherwise, it wouldn't. And committing to 3 months is something anyone can do, as opposed to like this looming task that kind of never gets done and kind of always is out of reach. You have to be like, nope, I'm going to commit to this, see how it goes, and take it from there. So that's great.
I also, if you want, I have a gift I can give. It's the 5 steps to get your book started. It's pretty much what I said, but it gives you complete direction just real quickly.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we'll link to that as well. Awesome. Anything else you wanted to talk about? I know we have an upcoming session workshop that we're going to be working on together.
You could talk about that. Excited about that. I'm going to host her doing crowdfunding. Is that the one we're doing?
Yes.
Yes. And so talk about that.
Yes. So basically, I mean, for those who are more familiar with me and helping authors crowdfund their books, it's just going to be a presentation about how we can crowdfund books, and I'll go through all the different genres and have case studies of the various, examples, so that if you're doing nonfiction or if you're doing a children's book, you have lots of examples that you can then look at after the workshop and dig your teeth into, because crowdfunding is a great way to launch and, of course, recoup the expenses that go into putting a book. But really, it's about, identifying what your goal is. Do you want to raise money, or do you want to pre-sell books? Those are two very different goals, believe it or not. And, is your goal to build your audience first, or is your goal to use the campaign itself to attract readers and build your audience? So there are a lot of different ways to do it and different strategies therein. So it's kind of, it's fun. Like, Amazon has a million different strategies that you can use to leverage the algorithm, and Kickstarter and Indiegogo is no different. It's a different platform, but they all have, okay, how do I boost the algorithm? How do I leverage all the traffic that's landing on that page and, lead to its conversion? So very interesting stuff. So what is the date for that? When do we have that?
I think it's October 15th. So let's double check that. But also it's Saturday morning. I think we said 10 o'clock. But this, I want to tell you, is a person who came into one of my classes, my Write Your Short Book in a Day, which is my signature class. And he did crowdfunding to do his book.
Nice.
His art. He found this beautiful artist in one of the Lafayette countries. And here he is. And I love his art. And he does a jacket, and he gave us stickers, and he gave us a bag. Because I tell people when I work with them, I'll be the first person to buy your book. So he did the crowdfunding, and this book came out, and I supported him in the crowdfunding. It's $25. We got the book and the stickers and the bag, and we supported him.
Yeah. That's how it goes. And I always support all of my authors too. Everyone knows that. And it's like, we are your biggest supporters. We want to see you succeed. And I wouldn't work with someone who wasn't going to also invest in my final product, because I want to work with someone who's just as invested in my work as I am. And so I think it's great that, you have that support going in and a community around you of supportive writers. That's most important. Good. Well, thank you, Mila. That wraps it up for today. Thank you so much. I'm going to link below to where everyone can reach out to you if they want to work with you, or if they want to sign up for the October 15th workshop, because that will be a lot of fun, and everyone will learn a ton on how to do crowdfunding if that's something they're interested in. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Thanks.